Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Orphan Last, aka Skylar Madison, and today I'm going to go ahead and do another cube rotation. But the way that I'm going to start the construction for this is basically like this. I'm going to pull out the assistant tool, and I'm going to create a meta level really quick here. And I'm going to start with the line tool. I'm just going to click. It has a nice horizontal horizon line going on here. And I'm going to create a vector level, and that's good. I don't really care what it's called. And I'm going to create a new style and color it red here, and I'm just going to make sure that it's snapped to the assistants. Okay, so now I have a horizon line. I want to make sure that this video has a little bit more clarity than my last video. So now pull out my brush again and turn off the assistants. So I'm going to pull out my brush and make a mark right there. And I'm just going to transition to my ruler tool, and I'm going to say every 10 millimeters, I'm going to go ahead and make a mark. Okay, excellent. So these are going to be the positions of the vanishing points as they move across the screen from here on out. So I'm going to go back to my assistant tool and the meta level, and I'm going to do a lot of the same things that I have been doing. I'm going to get this ruler up here. I'm going to call it a parallel ruler and perspective and grid even. And let's go ahead and get some sort of spacing going on here that makes sense. All right, that looks good. All right, now I'm going to go back to my vector level. I'm going to grab the geometry tool, and I'm going to just create a circle about yay big. Let me go ahead and turn it red so that it's totally obvious and you can totally see what's going on here. All right, and so I'm going to grab the assistant tool again. At this point, grab the meta level, and I'm going to click on ellipse and just click and make this nice and round. I'm going to go restrict A to make sure that it's all horizontal. I'm going to repeat, give it a grid just because that might make life a little bit easier for me, and set it to perspective. And I'm going to go back to my vector level, pull out the selection tool, and I'm just going to try and transform this to the same shape as the ellipse that I have established here. And again, I'm doing this step right here just so that people can see what's going on, what are the vanishing points doing and all that. And with the vector level, I'm just going to select all of this stuff and place it right where the vanishing points are so that the horizon line is right there where the vanishing points are going to be moving. All right, and let me zoom out. I need to go back to the assistant tool, and I need to make extra sure that this is good and horizontal. I kind of find myself wishing that there was a way to just press shift and make sure that everything is perfectly everything is what I wish, but it's fine for right now. Using the assistant tool, I'm now going to move the assistant so that it meets up with the edge of this red circle that I've created. Okay, and then I'm going to create another ellipse. Just click right there in the center and stretch it out to try to make it the exact same size and shape and everything. I'm going to restrict A, repeat, create a grid. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and extend this out to 60 frames. That sounds good to me. And I'm going to use the assistant tool. No, I'm going to use the animate tool, and I'm just going to click on the keyframe icon right here in order to create a keyframe at the first frame. Frame 2, I'm going to go ahead and extend this vector level as well. I'm just going to name this horizon line, and we can see that we have a vanishing point right here. And so when we get onto frame 2, I'm going to use the animate tool, and I'm going to press shift and move it over 1, and then I'm going to go to frame 3 and move it over 1 holding shift so that I don't wind up moving this up and down a whole bunch, and then move it over 1 for every single frame. Okay, so now we can see that since the center is getting off the canvas, I could just use this vanishing point as my new reference here. And I'm doing this so that I don't have like spacing issues down the road. I've had issues like that with my previous experimentations with this method. And what I'm more so doing is just experimenting with my perception of reality and sharing my findings. This right here, with me experimenting with rotating cubes and stuff, I have a working hypothesis on how to do all of this. And then I spend the week experimenting with new hypotheses if I happen to be wrong or what have you. And then I share my findings, whether I happen to be correct or incorrect or what have you. That's basically what I'm doing with this series, where I'm playing around with rotating objects and such like that. Okay, so I've reached 60 frames. I'm going to go to 100. I have every intention of working on 100 pictures today. That sounds great to me. Because if I have everything documented a little bit more carefully than in my first video about rotating a cube, then I'm able to share my findings a lot easier. Just for kicks and giggles, whether I wind up using all of this or not, I'm going to actually go up to 200 frames. Just for documentation's sake, I kind of feel as if I'm doing a little bit of a scientific experiment, is what I kind of feel like I'm doing here. Okay, 200 frames there. Okay, so that took forever, but if I zoom out, I can see, let me plot the assistant tool so I can actually see where the starting point was. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5. 5.5. So let's see here. 180 times 5.5 equals 990 degrees. Okay, so this is more than enough than what I need. But in the previous video, I felt as if I wasn't accurately counting how many of these 180 degree perspective circles I need in order to get a full rotation going on. Okay, and what I'm going to make sure that I do is that I'm going to be using this vanishing point and this vanishing point, so that I use the whole first circle. That's the goal. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a new vector level. I'm going to call it cube. All right, and so I'm going to move this over my horizon line level. I'm going to pretty much do most of the exact same things that I did in the previous video, but this is just me supplying more well-informed information. Okay, so just like in the previous video about cube rotations, I'm going to start out by creating an ellipse. And at this point, I kind of feel as though I've explained how to make an ellipse so many times that it's probably starting to get really annoying at this point. So I'm going to spare you guys the lecture about how to make an ellipse. I have plenty of videos where I'm discussing it at this point. If you haven't seen how to make an ellipse and you want me to narrate how to do it, you can just check out the Teach Me to Draw playlist. Okay, excellent. So with all these other styles here, I'm just going to start really lowering the alpha or the opacity of them, whichever term you prefer. And the only one that's going to be at full opacity is going to be this teal colored one. Okay. I'm going to rename this as Ellipse Sketch, and I'm just going to drag this on over to all 200 frames. Awesome. And then I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning and create a new level and call it a rotating box. I'm going to be animating this all in ones, and just like in the last video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start every drawing at the center of the ellipse right here, and I'm going to be dragging my next lines to the edge of the ellipse every single time, and that's going to start the construction of the cube for every single drawing. Now, the first experiment that I want to find out is how many of these 180 degree circles does it take to make a full rotation. In the last video, I don't feel as if I actually got a concrete answer to that. And in this video, I will, and I'll try to illustrate it so that you guys can see it a lot easier in this video, okay? So I'll go ahead and get started with that. And just like in my previous video about this topic, I'm going to make sure that frame 1 has a permanent onion skin on it at all times. The reason being is because I don't want that line that's inside of the center of the cube to move around at all. So it's actually essential that you keep the first drawing's onion skin on throughout the entire process. And then once I hit frame 3, I'm going to make sure that I have an onion skin of the image just before the current frame that I'm working on, so that I always have an idea as to where I'm at in the rotation and where the next drawing needs to move to. Okay, so let me go ahead and deactivate the onion skins, and I'm just going to grab my end marker here and move it where I need it. So it took 94 frames in order for me to make this. This actually took forever, absolutely freaking forever to make. But on your screen, when I edit this down, this will seem like it happened all within the blink of an eye. But yeah, you know, it almost looks like a 3D model, and I really wanted to be able to get this to look like quality. It does have a little bit of jitter, but it does seem like it's pretty stable by and large, considering that it's done in 2D. And so the next step that I'd like to do is this. So I want to measure just how long one of these are. Okay, so height. It is 445.25 millimeters high, and it is 504.65 millimeters in width, traveling 10 millimeters per frame, and in total it took 94 frames in order to have a full rotation. Okay, and I don't know how I personally can use that information, but if there are any mathematician like sort of geniuses out there, feel free to share whatever mathematical facts that I might find interesting and might even be able to incorporate in my animations. That might be interesting I would be interested in that sort of information. So feel free to share that with me. I would love to hear what you have to say. If you can extrapolate some sort of data or some sort of algorithm that might be able to help out. Okay, so I'm not really quite sure what exactly happened to the rest of the footage of the video, but it's not right. It's not good footage. So I'm gonna have to redo some of the content. So the only thing that you guys really missed was I drew these purple and green lines so that you can actually see what's going on with the vanishing points. Now, I got a constructive criticism saying that the vanishing points aren't in the right place. No, the red circles, those are what's not in the right place. Ultimately, the whole point of using the red circles is just as a visual to find out how many vanishing points you need in order to make a full 360 degrees. So as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 180 degree circles in order to get a full 360 degree rotation of the cube, okay? Or of the box. It's not a true cube because not all sides are equal in length. But ultimately, regardless if it's a box or a cube, you need to have 6 of these in order for you to get this to work. So in total you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 vanishing points in total. And, you know, since I'm having to re-record some footage, I want to correct these red circles. That's what I want to do. And what I think is really interesting is the moment to where the box is pointing right at us and it's sitting right next to the vanishing points. It creates this illusion that there's some sort of point where this green line is going to get really big and then get smaller somewhere off the screen. And it very well could, but just like how these get bigger and then smaller as they go to the other vanishing point. And it very well could, but it's all simulated. These lines are just on the edge of this circle to the right, and these green lines are on the edge of this blue circle to the left. And since they're pretty low, fairly low on the circle, the curvature is rather large and going more of a radius than when it happens to be closer to the center, like the purple lines are at this point in time. Anyways, guys, that pretty much concludes it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And if you guys would like to get more notifications from me, feel free to click on the bell or go ahead and follow me on Twitter. A link is supplied in the video description below. And if you guys would like to see more of my content, feel free to click on anything appearing on the screen right now. Thank you very much for your time.